In July 2021, Rachel Morgan, her husband Daniel, and their two children, 9-year-old Leo and 2-year-old Ivy, left their home in Nelson, New Zealand for a remote cabin deep in Fiordland National Park. Their destination was a quiet, isolated wooden cabin on the shores of Lake Te Arai, owned by Rachel's father. It wasn't a vacation in the traditional sense. This was a deliberate escape from the noise, pressure, and distractions of modern life, a chance to slow down, reconnect as a family, and find clarity in nature's solitude. Nestled among towering mountains and ancient forests, the cabin offered no internet, no cell service, and no neighbors for miles. What it did offer was something harder to find space to breathe. For the Morgans, this move wasn't just about scenery, it was about resetting their daily rhythm. As the world outside continued to spin with uncertainty, especially in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, Rachel and Danielle saw this as a rare opportunity to unplug and live simply, if only for a little while. The cabin sat in one of the most remote and untamed parts of Fiordland National Park, a wild stretch of land where dense forests, rugged mountains, and deep lakes created a haven for wildlife. Among the most notable inhabitants of the area were grizzly bears. Normally elusive and wary of humans, these bears had started showing up more frequently and behaving more boldly than usual. The reason for this shift traced back to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. With travel restrictions, lockdowns, and reduced activity across the country, hunting had been heavily limited or temporarily suspended. As a result, the natural balance in the area shifted. Without the usual human presence to keep them in check, grizzlies grew less fearful. They began to roam closer to cabins, trails, and other areas once considered safe. Sightings became more common, so did close encounters. For Rachel and her family, this new reality added an unexpected layer of tension to their retreat. What began as a peaceful escape into nature now included the challenge of living alongside powerful, unpredictable wildlife. While the wilderness offered beauty, stillness, and space to reconnect, it also demanded respect and caution. The lines between safety and danger were thinner than they had imagined, and every rustle in the woods became something to pay attention to. Living in the wild wasn't just romantic isolation, it was real, raw, and at times risky. Life at the cabin wasn't a blind leap into the unknown for Rachel and her family. Both she and Daniel were familiar with the realities of living in the wilderness. They had spent time in remote areas before and understood the precautions needed to stay safe, especially in a region known for its wildlife. They taught their children how to move carefully through the woods, stay alert, and respect the animals that shared their space. Daniel took the threat of grizzly bears seriously. Every time he left the cabin, whether to gather firewood, go on a walk, or explore the area, he carried a canister of bear spray strapped to his belt. In more isolated stretches of the forest, he also brought a firearm, not out of aggression but out of caution. It wasn't about confrontation, it was about being ready if the unexpected happened. The goal was always to avoid encounters, not provoke them. The family took simple but consistent safety steps. They kept food stored securely, cleaned up thoroughly after meals, and avoided wandering too far from marked trails or sightlines. Even young Leo learned how to recognize signs of animal activity and what to do if they saw a bear. Living in the cabin was peaceful, but it came with a constant awareness of their surroundings. For the Morgans, safety wasn't about fear, it was about preparation, respect for nature, and knowing how to live responsibly in the wild. One afternoon, while trying to get a phone signal to call her father, Rachel stepped away from the cabin and climbed a small rise where reception was sometimes better. The signal was weak, so she asked her son Leo to run back inside and grab the external antenna they used to boost their phones. It was a routine task, one they had done before without trouble. But this time, something went terribly wrong. As Rachel stood waiting, a large grizzly bear suddenly charged out of the trees behind her. It came without warning, fast and silent. In seconds, the bear was on her. The attack was brutal and left no time to react. Rachel screamed, and Danielle, hearing the commotion from inside the cabin, grabbed both the bear spray and his rifle and ran toward the noise. When he reached the scene, he used the spray first to try and drive the bear off. When that didn't stop the animal, he fired. The shot hit its mark, and the bear was killed, but it was already too late. Rachel had suffered fatal injuries in the initial seconds of the attack. The moment was devastating, sudden, violent, and irreversible. Despite all their experience and precautions, the wild had shown just how unpredictable and dangerous it could be. What had started as a peaceful day ended in tragedy, marking a painful turning point for the Morgan family in their time at the cabin. Following the attack, park officials and wildlife experts launched an investigation to understand what had triggered such a deadly encounter. The grizzly bear was examined thoroughly. It showed no signs of starvation, illness, or injury conditions that sometimes make wild animals more aggressive. It hadn't been provoked or cornered. The attack was unprovoked and by all accounts unexpected. Experts describe the bear's behavior as abnormal. Grizzlies are powerful and territorial, but they don't typically attack humans without cause. In this case, there were no clear warning signs or explanations. The conclusion was deeply unsettling. The attack was a rare, unpredictable event, something that could not have been reasonably anticipated or prevented even by experienced wilderness dwellers like the Morgans. Officials also noted that this was the first fatal bear attack in the area in more than 40 years. Fiordland National Park, despite its wild nature, had long been considered relatively safe for those who respected its boundaries. The tragedy served as a stark reminder that no amount of knowledge or preparation can completely eliminate risk when living alongside powerful wildlife. Nature is beautiful, but it's also wild and sometimes dangerously unpredictable. In the years since Rachel's death, her father has continued to visit the cabin with Leo and Ivy. For him, the place is more than just a remote retreat, it's a part of Rachel's story, a space filled with memories of her laughter, her strength, and the love she poured into her family. He brings the children there not to relive the tragedy, but to honor their mother's spirit and keep her memory alive in the place she loved most. At the cabin, they hike the trails Rachel once walked, sit by the lake she adored, and share stories about her life. The visits have become a quiet ritual, both healing and meaningful. Though the loss was sudden and heartbreaking, the cabin now serves as a link between past and present, helping the children grow up with a sense of who their mother was and the values she lived by. Rachel's story is a powerful reminder that life in nature offers both beauty and risk. But even in the face of tragedy, love and memory endure. By returning to the cabin, Rachel's family chooses to carry forward her legacy, not in fear, but in strength, resilience, and the deep bond they still share.